Okay, so in honor of Hanukkah, let's talk a little bit about Al Hanissim. Okay, so the first point I would make about Al Hanissim, and I know that Chait made this more extensively in a lumdish fashion, but I still think it's worth repeating, is that Chazal make it very clearly that even though you're supposed to mention Hanukkah and Purim in Shemona Esrei, you do not repeat Shemona Esrei for Hanukkah and Purim, but you do for
what's it called?
Rosh Chodesh, for Yalav Yavo, or for Chol Moed. Now, really, we have three divisions there, because Rosh Chodesh you only repeat during the day and not at night. Chol Moed you repeat always, which people get wrong, right? They think, oh, I know that you don't repeat for Yalav Yavo at night, and then they think that's true in Chol Moed. That's wrong. And then they, what's it called? But for Al Hanissim, you never repeat. Now, what is the logic for not repeating for Al Hanissim?
It's not a expression of your chiyuv of Shemona Esrei. It's
correct, right? So the way it I was at a shir a few weeks ago by Rav Gigi, and the way he put it, and I think this is basically the sharpest way of putting it, is that, so Zev said again.
It's not that you're like that. You have to have a Shemona Esrei that has this in it. It's that because you are engaged in hodah of modin, you have to then express.
Correct. Now, if you want me to put it in the in more, I didn't actually see this Makarno Chait's Makarish, so I'll read it to you. Probably the best source for this from Chazal is that in the Tosefta upon which the sugya is based, it's a little bit clearer, where it says as follows, right? Kol she ein bo musaf kagon Chanukah upurim b'shachar mincha mitpal Shemona Esrei v'omer me'ein ha'me'orah. Anytime you don't have musaf like Chanukah and Purim, so you say Shemona Esrei and you mention me'ein ha'me'orah. Now in the Gemara, sometimes me'ein ha'me'orah refers to Yalav Yavo, right? So it gets confusing. But in Tosefta it doesn't. Tosefta, it's just me'ein ha'me'orah is Al Hanissim, and imlo amar ein machzirin oto. The kol sheyesh bo musaf kagon Rosh Chodesh v'chol Moed b'shachar mincha mitpal Shemona Esrei v'omer kedusha hayom. ... In the Tosefta's language, it's Yalav Yavo is called kedushat hayom. Again, in the Gemara it's not, but in the Tosefta, Yalav Yavo is kedushat hayom. It expresses kedushat hayom. It transforms therefore Shemona Esrei. And what does me'ein ha'me'orah literally mean? Like something about the day, right? About the event. So what does it mean? It's like, look, once I'm saying Hodah, and a miracle happened around this time, so then I should talk about it. But it's not integrated into Shemona Esrei. It's not that it fundamentally changed it. There isn't Kedushat Hayom, but Modim says I should thank God, and one of the things I should thank God for is whatever happened to happen today. And that's what Al Hanissim is. Again, the lumdish question that you really have to contend with, therefore, is then why don't you say Rosh Chodesh at night? Right? I mean, Memanav Shach. We're not Makadesh Rosh Chodesh at night. Yeah. So if you're not Makadesh Rosh Chodesh at night, so either you should say, don't say it at all, or say it and it'll be Ma'akev. Why is it that the halacha is you say it but it's not Ma'akev even on the second night, even though by that point you already would have been Makadesh, right? That's a very interesting Lamdish Sugya, which we can do for another time, but that's really the Lamdish Sugya there. But fundamentally, when it comes to Al Hanissim, that's what we're talking about. Right? This is not reflective of Kedusha Yom. It's Me'ein HaMe'orah. We thank God for what we are saying. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. And again, some of the things I'm going to say are I have firmer ideas about. Some of them I don't. Here I really just pulled a lot of it. There's a website we have internally for rabbis, rabbanan.org with NYU, and Josh Flug puts up Makaro sheets with guides. On this one, he happened to put one Insights Al Hanissim, so I'm going to take some things from there, but I'm going to start with the things not from there, and see if you can help me. Because the first thing I want to note is what bothers me, and if we figure out shot in this, I'll be happy. If not, we'll do some other things, okay? So the guys who've been in this year, Alex, welcome. It's good to have you back, right? Know that I've been basically following the methodology of the Abudraham, at least as it's taken by moderns, where to understand in the Tefillah, you look at the psukim that Chazal are basing themselves on when they write the Tefillah, and then you try to figure out what that teaches you about context. Oh, okay. Actually, before we get to that, the major point about Al Hanissim that I would make if I hadn't already said this when we had shir on the book of Maccabees, I will, right? I would do, and maybe we'll come back to it. Is the question of why don't we mention the Nes Pach Hashemen? Why do we mention only the miracle of the war? That's the big question Al Hanissim, but we did actually deal with it a little bit when we had that, so maybe we'll come back to it. But I want to focus, since this has been the methodology, on one thing that's been bothering me. So this is the Abu Draham's method, as we've mentioned. Yes?
Yeah.
Good. Help me explain this phrase. So we start off, both Al Hanissim's the same. Al Hanissim, Al Program, Al Gurad, Al Shuv, Al Muhammad, Shasit, Al Vadinu, Bayamim Hahem, Bezman Hazeh. There are different Gersot and a lot of that. But the phrase that I've been thinking about is Bayamim Hahem, Bezman Hazeh. What does that phrase mean? So the Abu Draham tells you, where does that phrase come from?
Tanakh.
Yes, where in Tanakh? Come on.
Shmuel. Chagai.
You're being way too creative here. Okay,
Okay,
let me give you a hint. Thank you. It comes from the only book, right? That at least makes sense. It would come from there. Where in the Megillah does it come from? From Esther. Perek Aleph Pasuk Bet. Guys who are looking way too far. Vayhi b'mei Achashverosh, Achashverosh haMolech meHodu v'ad Kush Sheva v'Ezrim u'Mea Medina Bayamim Hahem Kishevet HaMelech Achashverosh HaKisei Malchuto Asher b'Shushan HaPira. Now, I tend to think he's probably right. That makes a lot of sense. That's the only book in Tanakh we have on either Hanukkah or Purim. It's right at the beginning of it. It frames the entire story. Bayamim Hahem.
Right.
But since I saw that comment in Abu Draham, I've been thinking, and what? Like, sometimes I understand why you quote certain, like, he goes through a lot of them. A lot of them are obvious. Like, where do we get the notion of Nisim? So he quotes, you could pick any pasuk in which you talk about Nisim. Purkan, times when we talk about salvation as Purkan. I mean, good, we can talk about this. A lot of those I sort of get. Okay?
Yeah.
Mapidom, what is this? Like, I just looked at it, because I sat down, I said, okay, let me follow the normal methodology I've been following. Let me look at the Abu Draham, see the psukim we're quoting. Great, Bayamim Hahem Bizman Hazeh.
Right.
And what? Like, why is that the pasuk that frames Al Hanissim?
Right.
So this is what I've been thinking about. I don't know if I have a good answer. So I said, okay, maybe. So the Abu Draham's next methodological move is, now he doesn't use it here, but what's his second methodological move? If there isn't a pasuk, or I will add, if I don't know why you would pick a pasuk, so then what's my next move? Look at midrashim and the things like that, and see if there are midrashic understandings of that pasuk that might help me understand the tefillah. So I went into Bar Ilan and opened this Sifrei Da'agadata al Esther, which is it's called Midrash Panim Acherim. I don't know when this midrash is from. I don't know how old it is, but I said, okay, what do they think it means? And they have, not surprisingly, many drashot on the words by Bayamim Hahem. So let's see if any of them help us, because I think they actually do, and maybe we'll gain insights along the way. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm making it all up, but you're working with me on it. This is all Gavi's fault. Gavi wanted me to give share on it, so I said, fine. And if it means that we work together and we come up with an idea, great. Bayamim Hahem, this is what the midrash says. Kishevet HaMelech Achashverosh. So he says, first of all, what is the benefit? Why do we talk about Bayamim Hahem? It's from Daniel. Me'ashnaya, Idanaya, Vazimanaya. So the first thing to know is that why do we care so much about time? Because Daniel, Perek Bet.
Yes.
Yeah. So Daniel, Perek Bet.
To a certain reign of this certain king.
So Perek Bet Pasuk Chof Aleph. Daniel, after about to interpret the dream of the king of Nebuchadnezzar, says, Anei Daniel v'Amar. Levishmei di Eloham mivarach min alma v'ad alma di chachmata gvorata dilehi. Dilehi. May God, the name of God be blessed forever and ever, for wisdom and might are His. And then he says, how is that expressed? V'hu mehashnei idanaya v'zimnaya mehadei malchin u'mehakim malchin. Yehei chachmata l'chakimin min da'aliyah devina. He alters times and seasons, deposes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who know how to reason. So this midrash tells you that why does Esther? Okay, this is gonna be a puzzle, and I'm gonna try to take you with my thought process, and maybe we come up with something. Okay, he says, why does Esther start with an emphasis of Bayamim Hahem? Because the theology of Daniel, which remember is basically, we're talking shooting range of Esther. We're talking the same kingdoms, both before and after, right? We get to Persia.
And possibly Daniel's still around.
And according to the Midrash, Daniel is actually there. Right. But what's the theological move that the Midrash makes? This Midrash makes. Why do we say Bayamim Hahem? Because the implication is only then. But remember that who is king is always Biyad Hashem. And God's greatness is, so to speak, defined by the fact that time and the power and the number of years that each king rules are completely at his whim.
Right.
And therefore he says, so right off the bat, this Midrash tells you that what is the theology of the words Bayamim Hahem? That remember that all kings and their reign are temporal or ephemeral. If I just stop there, I think we already would have a critical insight into what Al Hanissim is saying, which is, because what are we about to launch into?
That God deposed.
That God performed these miracles that seem not to make sense. Rabim miyad me'atim, Tmeim bi'at tehorim, in Shushana Bira. It makes no sense. The first thing you have to remember is Bayamim Hahem Bizman Hazeh. As much as all of that doesn't make sense, it makes sense. Because the theology of Esther is, by definition, all kings' rules are temporal, are ephemeral, and God decides who is king. So it looks like it makes no sense to you. It's not true. What allows for miracles then and now is the fact that all kings only rule Bayamim Hahem in a certain period of time, which God defines. I think that theological point that this Midrash makes is the key to Al Hanissim. Right? That explains all of Al Hanissim. But then it even gets better. It has this wonderful, wonderful continuation, which I think is even more profound in this context. It says, "Mitchilato shebriat haolam, habicharot hayu makrivin, ve'en hayu notlin hagdula." The way of the world since it was created was that bicharot, right? The firstborns are the greatest. Always true. And they took greatness. Except anyone who knows Bereshit, what's the next line in the Midrash?
It's never true.
It never works. That's what should be, but it never happens. V'cheinat damotzei kishahore Kayin et Hevel. Kayin is indeed the more powerful one. Kills his younger brother. He's in charge. Result? Lo nivneh ha'olam mehem. So therefore God says, yes, it's true that by right you should be in charge, but you're going to mess things up? Goodbye. Nitna hagdula l'sheit. Next, shenemar kishat le'elohim zera acher. V'natan sheit le'enosh. V'enosh l'kenan ad Noach. Good. World number 2 starts with Noach. And Noach gives the greatness to firstborn? No, to Shem. Who is definitely the eyes of Chazal. V'Shem Ayalo. She was number 2. And then he has 2 sons. V'lo natan hagdula lo l'rishon v'lo l'shini. Shekenu omer b'nei Shem Elam v'Ashur. V'natan hagdula Arpachshad. Who gets the greatness in Shem's time? Son number 3, Arpachshad. Shaya omed Avraham mimenu. Why? Because Avram comes from there. V'natan Avram liYitzchak. Avram gives his Yitzchak. Is he his firstborn? No. V'Yitzchak liYaakov. Is Yaakov the firstborn? No. V'Yaakov natan l'malchut liYehuda. Is Yehuda the firstborn? No. Yehuda Natan Levno Peretz, which
It's also weird.
pray tell what's going on there, right? Ma Peretz. So he is the firstborn, but
It's weird.
Of his mother, not his father.
Yeah.
Ma Peretz. Right. First of all, he's not
That's true, right?
correct. He's not the real firstborn, and even of his mother, it's the weirdness.
Yeah.
So he's not his firstborn. Ma Peretz, right? Ad she'egia letzidkiyahu.
He's not the first.
Until you get to Tzidkiyahu.
He's not the first one.
That's a long
Kevan. What?
That's a long way.
Yes. Kevan shegalat Tzidkiyahu. Natal Nebuchadnezzar hamalchut mimenu. Until Nebuchadnezzar, who comes from? No. From Shem's firstborn, Elam. Right? Bavel is from Elam.
Nice.
So he says the whole world is a history of frustrated firstborns until Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar says, I've had it. This is the theological read of the Midrash. It's a beautiful read. And Nebuchadnezzar comes and Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. And God said, listen. Kol yamim shahaya malchut biyad banai hayiti migalkel alehem. As long as the Jews were good, and I could give power to the Jews, so then I don't really care about who's the firstborn and who's not. But if my why? Because if I have to choose between birthright and meritocracy, I'll pick meritocracy. But what happens if the Jews don't deserve it? Everyone is Rishayim. So what's the default? Birthright. So if the Jews are going to go into Galut, I might as well send them to Galut under the firstborn and rewind time back to Shem's firstborn, to Elam. Zeo made Rashav, Zeo made Tzaddik, Zeo Lovev, Zeo Pareah. Achshav shenitalt malchut mibanai, tachzor lebeit avia. Elam haya b'charo shel Shem. Ubishvil Yisrael natla malchut me'ar pachshad. Shehein b'minei benav. Because of the Jews, so power went elsewhere. V'tachzor malchut le'elam shayita shalo. Shneimar kishevet hamelech Achashverosh al kisei malchuto asher b'Shushan bira ve'in Shushan Elam. Shushan is apparently also Elam. I don't know if this is true. Shneimar v'ani v'Shushan bira asher be'elam. I do know, actually. It's in Daniel. V'ani v'Shushan bira asher be'elam hamedina. And that's why Persia does it. They're also from Elam. They're also from Elam.
Nice.
This Midrash gives me, when I read this Midrash, I said, oh, I have a really nice shot now into Al Hanissim. Because what's the word of Al Hanissim? Bayamim Hahem. Theological point number one is that in order to make sense of all the miracles, you have to remember that people are given power by God's whim. Point two, according to this Midrash, though, is the power of Persia and the power of Bavel. Why did they get power? Because the meritocracy was over, because the Jews were bad, so God said I might as well go back to birthright. But what's the story of Chanukah? Correct, is that we rebelled against Yavan as tzaddikim. So what is the theological move? God says, look, my ideal world is meritocracy. If there isn't meritocracy, I'll give power to firstborns. But if you prove your worth, then I'll take the power away from the firstborns and give it back to the people who deserve it. And that's what you learn from Bayamim Hahem, according to this Midrash. And now you come back to Al Hanissim and you say, right, I read this, I'm like, that's a really...
Because
that was the message, that only then Persia had power. Because Persia's from Elam and the Jews didn't deserve it, but had the Jews deserved it, they would have had power. So now you come back to Al Hanissim, Bimei Matityo ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol Chashmonai banav. When there were righteous people, the Chashmonaim, now listen to the language of Al Hanissim. Kishamda Malchut Yavan Harishah. When the Yevanim came, but they were evil, and they were given and they tried to make the Torah be forgotten. So then you stood up for the Jews, and how did you express it? You gave over the many into the hands of the mighty into the hands of the weak. Rabim biyad me'atim, the many into the hands of the little. Why? Because tmeim biyad teorim, rishayim biyad tzadikim, v'zeidim biyad oshkei toratecha. That was a Oshkei was a sinner, right? That was a Oshkei toratecha ulechas itishem gadol v'kadosh ba'olamecha. And then they made your name great in this world. And I think, according to this midrash, why do you invoke Bayamim Hahem? Because Bayamim Hahem tells you that whoever has power is always an expression of theology. If the Jews deserve it, then God will prefer meritocracies, and He'll perform miracles, and He'll take away power from those who by right, quote unquote, by birthright should have it. But if you don't deserve it, then temporarily I'll give it back. Bayamim Hahem. So what does Hanissim say? Bayamim Hahem, in the middle of that time, at least in the case of Chanukah, there had been a time in which God had taken the power away from us and given it to them. But when we proved ourselves, God said,
Take it back. I'll give it back.
I can change this as much as I want. It's always temporary. It's only Bayamim Hahem. Bidyuk, it's only Bayamim Hahem. I'll make it that their power is temporary if you prove that you deserve me preferring the meritocracy over the birthright. So that midrash, I think, is actually a very nice theological framing. Again, I don't know whether this is what they're thinking, but following...
So where does Bisman Hazeh come into that then?
So Bisman Hazeh... So what's Bisman Hazeh?
No, it's the same.
Bisman Hazeh, and that's exactly... So why is this midrash quoting Daniel? To say that this wasn't just true in the time of Chanukah, in the time of Purim, rather. Bayamim Hahem Bisman Hazeh means the entire world. What is Daniel's pasuk? If you follow the midrash to the parallel in Daniel, that Daniel says that Bayamim Hahem is reflective of a theology of how God relates to power in all times and all places. In the case of Esther, that was a temporary blip. But the notion that God gives power to certain people, and in some times, and other people in other times, depending on merit, that is the way God runs the world with Dore Dore. Bayamim Hahem Bisman Hazeh, it doesn't matter if it's then, or it doesn't matter if it's now.
Right.
And that's what you do by invoking Daniel. The next midrash is also on this. And he says, Bayamim Hahem, Umordechai Yoshev B'shar HaMelech, Katzaf Biktan Vateresh. Okay? The midrash continues. Amar Rabbi Levi, Lama Katzaf Biktan Vateresh. Why were Biktan and Teresh so angry in the Purim story? Ella, Kishenichnesa Esther LaMalchut, Amra Lachashverosh, Lama Ein Ata Osev, Kishem Shayu Amalachim Arishonim Osim. Shaya Moshivim Adam Tzadik Yehudi Yoshev B'shar HaMelech. This is a wonderful midrash. She said to Achashverosh, hey Achashverosh, all good non-Jewish kings have a smart Jew in the court. Okay? I love this midrash. Nebuchadnezzar Hoshiv Daniel al Petro. Nebuchadnezzar had Daniel. Right? This is like that statement that people got very angry about with Trump, right? I want guys with kippas managing my money, right? But, right? Okay, what? Yes. But Oy is right, but that's not the point. The point is that this midrash sets it up that Esther is basically playing on that anti-Semitic trope and saying, yeah, look, every successful king has one, it's not every successful man has a woman behind him, right? It's every successful guy has a Jew behind him, right? That's the theology of this midrash. Okay, fine. Not important. What? Anyways, She'im Yagilo Dodavai Amarlo, Shneimar Vadiniel B'Tramalka. So Amarla, but I love this midrash. It's a wonderful midrash because it's so imaginative. It's great. So Achashverosh said to her, Amarla Makir At Yehudi Bashar. You got any Jews in mind? Amarla, Yesh Kan Adam Tzadik V'Kasher Shmor Mordechai Yehudi. Yeah, I've heard of this good, from smart, honest Jew, Mordechai. Bigtan v'teresh hayishun b'shar, and Bigtan and Teresh are sitting there. Keivan shevir and Hamelech v'Hoshiv Mordechai sham katzvu. So, in the meantime, Bigtan and Teresh were the power brokers, and then the king said, "You're fired. The Jew is hired." And they're like, "I'm not happy about this." Shneimar katzaf Bigtan v'teresh masu. So what do they say? Amru ho'il v'yareinu Hamelech mimkomenu. The king got rid of our power. Let's kill the king. Vayhi hakol omrin. כשהיו בקטן ותרש משמרין המלך היו משמרים אותו יפה. עכשיו שיושבים שם יהודי נהרג והיהודים ומייחין לא יודעים. Sorry, I went too far. And he said, what will everybody say? The non-Jews are really good at being the secret service. Then he appointed the Jew to be secret service, and look, an assassination attempt succeeded, you see. And then everyone will go back to using the Biktan and Teresh, the Goyim, as the secret service. Right? This midrash is amazingly imaginative. It's like amazing. Like, what lessons you're supposed to learn in this, I don't know. But this is like, you can imagine every like anti-Semitic trope and conversation going on. Okay. So they're talking about it. And they didn't know. This is a common theme in the midrash that Mordechai was a member of Sanhedrin, so he knew all 70 languages. And he heard them saying, "We'll hide a snake inside of the king's cup, in his bottle, whatever. V'yamod v'yishtev yamud, and then he'll die because he'll drink the poison. V'sham Mordechai davar shnemar v'yodei v'yivadal adavar leMordechai v'aged l'ester malkav. V'yesham ruach hakodesh nemar lo v'yesham shenechnas v'lo yadu bo asharim v'lo kilim v'lo ziko adam." Right? Either it was ruach hakodesh, or he snuck in at night and no one knew, etc. Skipping down. V'lama amar la Mordechai shetomar lamelech v'lo k'tiv lo tichrot lahem Elohim brit. Now the midrash says, but why did Mordechai try to save Achashverosh? Aren't you not supposed to make deals and covenants with the Avodah Zarah? Like, what is he doing in protecting Achashverosh, going out of his way? So let him die. Big deal, right? This is not a positive person. He said no. Amar Mordechai mutav sheyichyezeh v'yitain li reshut livnot beit hamikdash. But
he's going to be rewarded
with the ability to build the Beit HaMikdash. He said, I see. So what does the Midrash imagine? That what is Bayamim Hahem? Remember, this is all in Bayamim Hahem. What's Bayamim Hahem? That Mordechai, there was anti-Semitism going on, but Mordechai said, I'll pick the non-Jew, who himself may be unsavory, as Achashverosh clearly is in the Midrash, if that's what's necessary to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. Because sometimes you need, right, and as we know, Persia is indeed the kingdom that allows them to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash under Hatzarat Koresh, and then more practically under Daravesh. Right? I mean, the Hatzara, right, the Balfour Declaration of the Persian period is Hatzarat Koresh, and then you have a few freezings of that and some white papers, and then Dariavesh comes back and builds it. Fine? So what is this midrashic understanding? What's Bayamim Hahem? No. What's Bayamim Hahem?
God.
At that time, when the Jews are still in Galut and are still in a difficult period where their best chance at spiritual success, at regaining sovereignty and regaining power, is sometimes to help out the non-Jews, who are the least anti-Semitic and most of the bunch. That's Bayamim Hahem, under those complicated political situations. Right, so now let's come back. So this explains which of the two Al Hanisims? Purim. Obviously, it's coming from Bayamim Hahem. Bimei Mordechai v'Esther b'Shushana b'Raksha Mad Alehem Haman Rasha Bikesh Lashmid, etc. Right, during that time where everything is so precarious. So that's a time when the Jews are willing to be Yoshev B'Shar HaMelech. But you get this interesting insight into Chanukah, because Chanukah is the opposite. It's the hope. Right? Meaning the Purim miracle is happening in a time when everyone's right. There is no chance at real power. They're helping out certain members of the political establishment with a hope that things will get better. But Mordechai's hopes, as the Midrash imagines them, are the Chashmonim's reality. That they say, we don't need to suck up to anybody because There's no one who's going to help us. Our only option is fighting, and then we won't need you to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. We'll do it ourselves. And what does the Rambam say the real celebration of Hanukkah is?
Mikdash.
No. V'chazra ha'malchut liYisrael yoter mimamatayim shana. That we managed to get political sovereignty for 200 years out of it. And rededicate the Beit HaMikdash. Meaning, I think here you get an interesting irony. We quote a pasuk to introduce two possibilities. The Purim possibility, which is the reality where Bayamim Hahem, in those days when there was no real hope and the best you can do is side with the better of your options, right? In the hopes that one day things will get better, we'll have sovereignty in the Beit HaMikdash. God performs miracles then, and God also performs miracles in the Hanukkah times where
There is the hope.
when we say, you know what, forget it, there's no one for us to rely on, we only can rely on God, Mil Hashem Elai, and we'll go back and we'll take our sovereignty back, we'll build the Mikdash. And what do you get theologically by introducing both possibilities with the same generic phrase?
That it's really all one thing.
Yes, that God is behind it. And if God decides that we are in an unfortunate political situation and the best thing we can do is work within that situation and make things better with hope for the future, or when we get to the point where, in fact, God will say, okay, it's your time to burst out and actually be powerful, both of those are God. Right? Both of those are God. And they are, for the Midrash, both Mordechai. There's Mordechai's reality and Mordechai's hope. But in the words of Hanissim, Mordechai's hope is Hanukkah's reality. And both of those are Bayamim Hahem Bizman Hazeh. Those, and therefore, what is the Bizman Hazeh? Whether we live in the Bayamim Hahem of Mordechai's reality, or in the Bayamim Hahem of Hanukkah's reality, which is Mordechai's hope, right? Whether our Bizman Hazeh is the hope or the reality, is the Hanukkah or the Purim, God is there and is performing miracles for which we have to thank Him. Okay, so this was what I was thinking about, is if we follow the Avudraham's sort of method, which is take a pause, and again, the way I basically thought about this was, which of these words does needs explaining? So every one of the Avudraham's words, which is, Nisim comes from Psukim that talk about Nisim, and Purkan talks about things that come from Purkan, which is a bit weird because it's Aramaic, but okay, but sometimes appears in different ways. Those I get. Right? You're coming up with words to explain miracles and salvation. So you go through Tanakh and said, what words does Tanakh use to describe it? That I didn't need like a big chiddush. But what stuck out for me was these words by Bayamim Hahem. Right? If he's right that we're picking it, this pasuk from this ominous beginning of the Megillah, what does that teach us about Al Hanissim? So there I traced the Midrashim and said, well, if these are the theological messages that the Midrash sees in Bayamim Hahem, but this is the theology of Daniel, that power is always ephemeral and God can choose between meritocracy and birthright and take power away from one king and give it to another, and that sometimes the reality is He'll save us within the context where it still is time for the non-Jewish kings to rule, and sometimes He'll say it's time to go back to meritocracy because now you deserve it and we'll give it. All of those realities and all those hashkacha realities that are implied in this theology of Daniel in one pasuk, which is that God's power is defined by the fact that He is timeless and therefore gives power to kings at certain times and others. That theological notion, at the end of the day, is really what frames Bayamim Hahem Bizman Hazeh, Bimei Mordechai Be'Esther B'Shushan Bira, and Bimei Matthew ben Yochanan going Gadol Chashmor Ayvanav Kshandu Malchut Yavan Harisha, because those are two opposite models. If you're not deserving, but I'm going to save you, okay, I'll save you. That's Esther. If you're deserving, then I'll change the political order, and that's Chashronai. But God is present in all of those, and that's the point. Al Nisim, Val Purkan, Val Gurot, Val Yishuot, Val Chuot, Val Mechamot, Shasita Lotenu Bayamim Hahem Bizman Hazeh. You did it in every type, and what's Bizman Hazeh?
Even now.
Yeah, but what the beauty of Bizman Hazeh is, according to this read, let's read it very carefully. Bayamim Hahem has a specific historical moment that it's referring to, or two historical moments. Bizman Hazeh does not. It's whoever's saying it. It's whether I exist in a Shushan-like moment, or in a Hanukkah-like moment. God is behind the scenes. God is performing the miracles. It's all there, right? It's one of them has a reference and one of them doesn't. Obviously not. It's Bizman Hazeh, and therefore whoever's reading Bizman Hazeh can say, "Oh, I'm in
This one, the Hanukkah one.
correct." And we've talked about this before, that the early religious Zionists, when they said, should we set up a holiday of Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim and say Hallel, they said Chanukah and Purim. They say, the Chassam Sofer says that Chanukah and Purim are Daraisa expressions, are Darabbanan expressions of the Daraisa idea, which is every time there's a nace, you are chayiv to set up some way of thanking God.
Right.
So they said, which moment are we living in? They said, we're living in the moment of Chanukah. And therefore, we have to learn from the model of Chanukah, where the reaction is Shevach, that we should set up a chag with Halav Oda modeled on Chanukah. But I think it's profound to notice that when Chazal wrote Al Hanissim, what do they want you to believe? What do they want you to come to believe? That the theology of Purim and Chanukah are supposed to inform the way you experience the miracles that face you in your own times. And when you look at the poskim and how they actually treated Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim, that is what they did. And that's the halachic expression of Al Hanissim, so to speak, right? Of the theology of Al Hanissim, is that the only reaction we can have to this is to say, recognize that God's presence is manifest in our miracles, and then formulate the proper response in light of the way that Jews have done it, l'dorei dorot. And that's really what Al Hanissim is saying. Okay, so those were my thoughts. I said at the beginning I was going to use Josh Flog's things, and now I have 12 minutes left. So most of it was my own thoughts and thinking through it with you. But I'll throw out a few other things. So let's make the point that we made in the shir on lecture on Sefer Maccabim. I don't know, right? Whatever. The shir, yeah. Okay. One thing that's striking about Al Hanissim, once you get into the text about Hanukkah, is that we celebrate only the miracle of the war and not the miracle of the Pach Hashem. Now, we noted that this type of thing is part of what pushes some people to say, right, if you want to be very kfiradik, that it never happened. But this isn't a new vort. Many people have picked up on this. So here's two other explanations. The Rav, let's go in order here. The Maharal, which is what everybody quotes, says that no, inachinami, the main miracle of Hanukkah was the defeat of the Greeks. That's what it was. That's what we thank God for. What is the point? What is the role of Neis Bach Hashem, man?
Identifying that the Neis happened.
Correct. He said, if it was just that, he said, Ikar ma shekavu yimei Chanukah b'shil ma shenitzchu ha'Yevanim. Rak shlo yanir eshin nitzachon lidei Neis Hashem yirach sha'azazev v'lo mikamu gvuratam. You needed Neis Bach Hashem to teach us that
it's the Dori.
No, that it was a miracle, and that it was a miracle. Yeah. That it was a miracle, right? That the fact that you have a little symbolic supernatural miracle reminds us that this is God. It's not kochi v'otzem yadi, which is missed. And if you want evidence that it's easy to miss this, just look at Israel. Right? Modern Israel, religious Zionists said we have to recognize that Yom Ha'atzmaut, right? We have to come up with religious expression. But what was the response of the avid secularists? They replaced the pasuk of Mi Yimalel Gvurot Yisrael, Mi Yimalel Gvurot Hashem, with Mi Yimalel Gvurot Yisrael, and made that a Hanukkah song. Right, a Hanukkah song, because they said let's remove God. It's right on Hanukkah, which is about recognizing that our amazing military victories that are Rabbim Miyad Miatim are from God. They said no, it's not. Instead of Mi Yimalel Gvurot Hashem, who will praise God, it's Mi Yimalel Gvurot Yisrael. What are you doing? Right? What are you people doing? And Maharal says that's why you needed a little symbolic miracle. But once you had that symbolic miracle, the Iker miracle was the war. The role of Pach Hashemen was to tell you that was a miracle.
What about all the other Nisim that we have in like Megillas Tainus? They didn't have
Good.
that.
So that's why I don't think this is sufficient. I talked about this this year. That I think part of it is that no, it's the God reminding us that He's with us even when things are hard is what continued to be meaningful after, right after the sovereignty had been lost. The Rav in Harei Kedem writes a little bit differently. He says, "V'talmad avad lo muskol enes depach Hashem and b'tfilah b'rkat hamazon nireh. Tibibirchat hoda'ah ein anu modim ala tovot haruchaniyot. El al chayenu amisurim v'yadecha v'al yinyei agashmiyot." He has a very interesting point. He says, when you say modim, you don't thank God for spirituality. Think about the bracha. We thank God for our lives. He said, in benching, Rakal Torah, Yeshodav Rechanamazim, Vudin Musyam Torah, Below Shanyan Ruchniot, that's a local halacha there, which maybe we have to explain a different time. Valkain Gam Benusach Alanisim Enan Maskir Niflo, Dainu Nes Bach Hashemen, Kevan Shemezel Tova Ruchniot Bavodah Mikdash. Because it's just a spiritual good. That's also an interesting point. It's an interesting point that, and this is something that I think we talked about our first week on Tefillah, is that the Rav really believes that one of the keys to Tefillah is to remember that Chazal are not mystics in that sense. They don't think that you have to think about Tefillah on these rarefied levels. Tefillah is important because it's very human. It's just human. And what would it mean like if we thank God for the Nes Bach Hashemen? You're saying, thank you, God, for allowing us to continue to worship you. That would make it sound like the only thing that's worth thanking God for, right? Yeah, physical stuff, passionate, to win wars. Al-Anisim tells us, no, it's not true. Like fundamentally, what we're thanking God for is Yom Yom. Like the mundane things. That's what you're thanking God for. Wars, victories. So he says, and he says he'll prove it. And he has this very nice diuk. He says, Al-Hanisim in Tefillah and in Birkat Hamazon, it's Al-Hanisim ve'al ha'purkan, at least in our girsa. What's the girsa of Al-Hanisim in Ner Halalu? Al-Hanisim ve'al ha'niflaot. Al-Haniflaot. So the Rav said, what's the difference between a nifla and right? He says, nifla is something amazing. It's a miracle. And he says, it's not that Hanukkah isn't about it. It's that on Hanukkah we have two things. Shmona Esrei is a time when we talk about mundane, gashmios, whatever. So we thank God for our physical salvation. Hanukkah is a second level where we do thank God for spiritual. But that's in when we light the candles. And then we say, Anisim v'aniflaot. Lefishikol ikar din adlaka neru lefarsem anes. Va'apela sheb ben hamikdash. He said, why? Because tefillah is about the here and now. What is the Maisa of Hadlakat Nerot? A Pirsa Manes of the Beis HaMikdash. So there we thank God for the Beis HaMikdash. That's how he understands it. V'shaber maskirim benusach hanerot halalu lefele al pa'ach Hashem. And that's the Rav's insight into it. Okay, there are some little things. The Vav. Should you have a Vav or not? So there are many Mefarshim who wanted to add a Vav before Va'al Hanisim, because as we talked about, it's integrated into Modim. Others just note, Rabbi Yaakov Emden says, look, it probably is connected to Modim, but sometimes you don't have a Vav. Okay, it's not the biggest deal. Okay, good. Different points. Let's see, we have 5 minutes left, so we'll make one more point. Why is Purkan here? Purkan is really an Aramaic word, right? It means like a salvation or something, but what is it exactly? Yeah, I don't know. So you could have said, so Rav Shimon Sofer says that maybe Purkan has two connotations, salvation and redemption from captivity. So it's just a good word which captures many things. Could be. Rav Avram Landa says that it's not Aramaic. It comes from Vayifkarenu Mitzarenu or Parka Ufarakta Ulo, which means to remove or alleviate. So it's an Aramaic word with, okay. There's this interesting word, which is he quotes from Shlomo Zalman Hanau. Why do we thank God for wars? Isn't that weird? Right? Isn't that weird? Why would you thank God for wars? Right? We can say al nitzachon, right? The victory of it, but
Well, milchamot is weird, yeah.
right. So therefore, what does he do? He gets rid of the vav. So this Sharei Tefillah gets rid of the vav and says we don't thank him for war. We say al tshuot al melchamot shasitem avotim emezeh. We don't. Correct. Exactly. The salvation from the war. Right? He says you're right. You don't do that, and therefore take out the vav al tshuot al melchamot. The salvation on the war. We don't thank God for the war. We thank him for the salvation from the war. But Rav Yaakov Emden says, no. Rav Yaakov Emden says that's not the theology of Hanissim. You know how I know? He says you can thank God for the fact that he fights our wars.
Right.
Now, I could give you a pasuk which is Hashem ish milchama, but he gives you a line in Hanissim which is later on we say Rav Ta'ed Rivam. You are thanking God directly for the fact that he fought on your behalf. We're not happy that the war happened. We're thanking God for fighting our wars for us. You're actually thanking God for fighting on our behalf. Which obviously the pshat is the same, right? It's Hashuot on the Melchamot. But we are allowed to thank for the Melchama itself. Okay, those are small little points, but again, the fundamental points that I think you get from Bayamim Hahem are something that I haven't seen before, and then I threw out some of the classic material thanks to Rabbi Flug. Those are some thoughts for it, and